Thank you for joining me for today's webinar from Vision to UX Design with RAD Studio. For quality purposes, all lines except the presenter line are muted. Please feel free to ask questions throughout this webinar in the Q&A panel on the right. This webinar is being recorded and a replay will soon be available on the Embarcadero YouTube channel. We're also going to do live Q&A at the end of this session. My name is Sarina DuPont and I manage the Developer Tools Product Management team here at Embarcadero Technologies. For today's session, I'm also joined by Cindy Zablockis, our lead UX designer. Now let's have a look at the webinar agenda. We're going to go over the prototyping process, traditional wireframing approaches, the new FireMonkey stencils, a number of rapid wireframing tools, mockup and prototyping tools, the process for handing off a finished design to development, and then prototyping with RAD Studio. I'm also going to be showing a demo of using the design that Cindy is creating as part of this webinar to implement the same UI in FireMonkey. Now let's have a look at the process. The process starts out with designing the user interface. A designer or developer will either sketch, wireframe, or mock up the application UI. This is then followed up by prototyping. If a design looks good, a designer will create a prototype to simulate the application interface interactions. And we're going to cover a number of tools today that show you how to do that. Then we move to testing and iterating. So once we have the design, we're going to then test that with a number of users to ensure it meets the user's needs. And then when we're done with that, we're going to hand over the designs to our developers for implementation and actually developing the application. Now, the traditional wireframing approach consists of using pen and paper to sketch out your user interface. And there are a number of printable sketch sheets. And if you use your favorite search engine and search for printable sketch sheets, you will come across a number of them. And these provide the device frames, for example, for a phone form factor, a tablet form factor, to help you better visualize what your user interface is going to look like. There are also some physical stencil kits that you can purchase, and I'm showing one on screen here, the UI Progo Stainless Steel Stencil Kit. And these stencils allow you to quickly mock up user interface using pen and paper. I'm not sure if you're familiar with FireMonkey stencils, but we released them as a free tool a couple of months ago. They're ready to use visual assets for designers. So they're designed for designers to be able to quickly design a UI that a developer can then implement in FireMonkey using the matching user interface controls. And we're going to do an in-depth demo of that today as part of this webinar. The stencils come in two different sets. We have a generic UI theme, and you can see that one on the left. We also have a iOS Copper theme-based stencil kit that is designed to allow you to lay out your iOS application in your favorite design tools, such as Sketch, Illustrator, or Photoshop, and then quickly be able to implement that same matching UI using the premium FireMonkey style in the FireMonkey framework. Now let's have a look at rapid wireframing. So in addition to using a pen and paper approach, which is a traditional method, there are a number of tools on the market today that allow for rapid wireframing. And these provide drag and drop design capabilities, so you can easily drag and drop a number of UI elements. They allow for quick iterations. Many of them also provide real-time collaboration, so you can all be logged in and on the web design your UI together, comment on things, so you have a much more iterative approach. And then some of these wireframing tools also allow something called hotspotting and linking between screens. And that's really designed to allow all the stakeholders that are part of your application design and development to better visualize the various design concepts and functionality. And in the screenshot here on the right, you can see the FireMonkey symbols and icons that are used in Balsamiq. And Balsamiq is a very popular wireframing tool that many designers use for quick wireframing. And Balsamiq can be used in addition to the pen and paper method or instead of a pen and paper method. It really mimics that traditional approach. The UI controls are not specific to a platform. They don't have a specific style, but we created FireMonkey symbols and icons that can be used in a wireframing tool such as Balsamiq for quickly wireframing your UI, and you can then hand off that design to a FireMonkey developer for implementation. Now, if you want to go from wireframing to something that's closer to a final design, then you can use a number of mockup and prototyping design tools such as Sketch, Illustrator, and Photoshop. And those really allow you to get very close to the final design that the developer will then implement. There are also prototyping tools such as InVision that are web-based that allow you to simulate UI interactions to further help the developer understand what type of UI interactions you're envisioning between the different screens that you're designing. And these type of prototyping tools combined with the FireMonkey stencils allow you to easily generate high resolution, ready to use reference designs. And those are really designed to make it a lot easier for a developer to implement the UI that you're looking to have them build based on the designs that you're providing. So once a design is finalized, FireMonkey Sketch, Illustrator, or Photoshop stencils can then be uploaded to popular redlining tools. And those redlining tools allow you to see the width of a control, the height, the name of the control that was used, which matches the name of the FireMonkey framework. So for example, toolbar, tab control, list item, etc., to help you quickly implement the UI. They also provide things like width and height information, what icons were used, etc. So they're very helpful in terms of speeding up the development process. And we're going to show one today called Zeppelin. Now, RAD Studio makes rapid prototyping easy. You can easily take a design that you did digitally using a tool such as Balsamic and then generate the wireframes to hand over to the developer to implement in RAD Studio. You can, of course, also do that with high fidelity designs. And I'm going to show that today as part of this demo. Now, with RAD Studio, we provide support for live data at design time. And this is really helpful if you're building your user interface. As you can see here in the screenshot, we have live data that's coming from a BAS source, and then we connected it into a list control using the Live Bindings Designer. So seeing that data at design time is really helpful as you're able to visually tweak right at design time your list control to ensure that all the elements from the data source are visible, they properly fit, etc. We also have something called Live Preview, and this allows you to lay out your application, make UI tweaks at design time, and have those reflected in real time on a number of connected devices. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Cindy, who's going to show you how to lay out an application using the different prototyping tools and our free FireMonkey stencils. And after she's done with that, I'm going to show you a demo of how I go about actually implementing that UI that she has designed.
Hi, this is Cindy. I'm the lead UX designer at Idera. I'm going to show you how to quickly create a wireframe and convert it into a high-fidelity mockup using FMX stencils. For this demo, I'm going to create a profile screen using Balsamic and iOS Cooper stencils. First, I'm going to open Balsamic. As you can tell, I've already landed onto a page where a bunch of components are placed. Each component is saved as a symbol. You can either copy and paste them into your wireframe, or go to the Symbols tab and drag and drop them onto the screen. Or you can quickly add them by the quick add if you know the name. Now let's get started. I'm going to add a new mockup screen, rename it, I'm going to add a container. You can use the pre-defined containers, or in my case I'm going to create a custom one. Then I'm going to resize the screen, and then I'm going to start creating my mockup. I'm going to make the header first. I'm going to resize, add a few icons. Next icon. Add some text. And then I am going to add the profile image container and resize it to 180 by 180. And add the username using the big title. Add email. Then I'm going to align everything. And then I'm going to add edit or search. I want the magnifying glass. If you notice, the component is a little bit smaller than the container, so what I'm going to do is break it apart, ungroup, and then resize it. I'm going to get rid of the clear icon and the text. Then I am going to add a list control. I'm going to break it apart, ungroup, resize. I'm going to add the right arrow. I'm also going to add an icon document. Resize it to medium. Move the text. Rename it 320 blog post. And then I'll repeat for the rest of the wireframe. And when you're done, you have a final wireframe that you can discuss with your product manager, the developers, and other stakeholders. Wireframes are great for quickly sketching a UI and determining the task flow between features and as well as other screens without having to spend too much time on it. Wireframes are also a great tool to test with users to determine how quickly all the features, if everything is good. The sketchy design allows you to test it and allows the users to focus on the interactions instead of the colors and the fonts. And once everybody agrees on these final wireframes, a designer then can move to creating a high fidelity mockup. And with the iOS Cooper stencils, that makes it a lot faster and easier for the designer. So what we're going to do is open up Sketch. Same as Balsamic, you're going to land onto the Components page. And the Components page is a list of all the components. Each one is saved as a symbol. You can either copy and paste them or go to the symbol list and drag and drop them onto the artboard. So let's create a new page. Call it Profile Screen. Add a artboard. You can either use some of the presets, or in this case, I'm just going to drag and create a custom one. I'm going to change the background color to a nice dark gray. And then I'm going to start dragging, or actually copying and pasting components. So my first component is going to be the header. I'm going to resize it. I'm going to add some icons. The wrong one. Grab the different state. So it's very good to remember that each one is broken up by a different state. So I'm just going to grab two of them. I'm going to resize them. I'm clicking the lock icon to lock the height and the width so it resizes at the same time. I'm going to add some text. Change my font. Align it, center it, and center within the header. And then I'm going to add the profile image. Make that 180, 180. Add a border, 5 pixel. Duplicate. And drag my image onto the board. Mask it. And I'm going to reposition the image to where I want it to be. Center her. And group so that way I don't move it by accident. Then I'm going to add search. As you notice that the size is a little small, so what I'm going to do is detach the symbol and resize it. You have to remember there's a container and then there's an outline you have to resize. Over to you, over to you. And then I'm going to add a list box. And detach it. Get rid of name him 220 blog post. Scoot it over. Add one more icon. I guess resize. And then I'm going to add my own icon, which I already have on the desktop. Just drag it on. And change the color. Move the text a little bit. And then I'll continue to build the mock-up until I have a final mock-up that I can show to the stakeholders so they have an idea what the preliminary final design will look like. UX designers can create a prototype to test with users so they can ensure the UI is easy to use and what the users need before any coding happens. How a designer would create a prototype depends on the tools they are using. I'm going to quickly demonstrate using Envision. I'll select the artboard and then click onto the Craft Eye plugin. I already have an artboard on Envision already selected, and I hit update. There's the screen. I could view it. Then I can start adding interactions to it by hitting the build mode. Just hit hotspot. You can do to external URLs. You can also do time interactions. And you can do a lot more. I don't have enough time to show you, but let's move on to the next step, which is after everything is accepted and the UI is ready to be built, a designer then can hand it off to the developer. And a great tool is Zeppelin. I'm going to show you how to do that. You click on the artboard, you go to Zeppelin plugin, hit export, import it. You'll see the style guides here. You go to the dashboard, click on the screen. You can see versions. I've done a lot. You can add comments if you want. You can also download assets. You can see the size. You can see the fonts. You can see padding, spacing, padding, everything you need to build the UI. Well, that's all for my presentation. If you have any questions, hold on until the end of the webinar and post your questions to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. I'm now going to show you how I built a FireMonkey profile screen in Delphi using Cindy's design as a guide. So what Cindy did is she gave me access to Zeppelin, and this allows me to see the different UI elements, the names of the UI elements, the sizing, etc. This is a really excellent reference guide for any developer that's working with a designer because it speeds up that entire process. So what I've done here is I've selected each control. This design is using the FireMonkey stencils as Cindy showed earlier, and we can see the name of each of the controls. Toolbar, we have 2 tool buttons, and we have a label. So I've done the same here. I have a top aligned toolbar, and I have parented a label and 2 speed buttons to it. And if we have a look here, I have set the left speed button's style lookup property to details tool button. And then I have set the right speed button's style lookup property to next tool button. And these are the style elements that are built into the premium FireMonkey iOS Copper style. And they match the design and also the naming conventions that you see in Cindy's design. So the FireMonkey stencils are designed to make it really easy for a designer to lay out an application that the developer then can implement in Delphi, C++ Builder, or RAD Studio using the FireMonkey framework for multiple platforms. And so the next element here is a circle with an image. So what I've done here is I have dropped a T-circle onto my form. I've set a top margin of 25 so that we have some nice spacing between the toolbar and the profile image. And then I've selected the brush property and I have set the fill to a bitmap. And then the stroke I'm setting to a shade of orange. And this allows me to really closely match the design that Cindy created. And you can play around obviously with the colors and match it perfectly if you wanted to. So we have a look at Cindy's design. We have two labels. We have the username and the email address. We have a search edit, and we have 4 different listbox items. And for each listbox item, you see we have a nice arrow set, and we have the listbox text, and then we also have an icon. And if I double click on the icon here, I can easily via Zeppelin go ahead and download each of these bitmaps, and then I can use those bitmaps and quickly apply them to my design in FireMonkey. So this is a great way for a developer to get access to all the graphical user interface assets that they need for their application. And so what I've done here is I've dropped a list box onto my form. The list box is bottom aligned, and then I have set some margins on the left and right, so we have some nice spacing, very similar to Cindy's design. And I've added a T-search list box, and this is done by right-clicking on the list box, selecting Add Item, T-search box, and then I've added 4 list box items. And for each of the list box items, I have selected the item data property. I've set accessory to a more, and that defines a nice arrow for each of these list box items. And then you can also load in a custom graphic. And in this design, I'm using icons from icons8.com. And you can also access icons from icons8 in the Get It package manager. You'll have to agree to the license terms, and then you'll be able to download the icons8 desktop application. And then I have a tab control with 3 different tabs: Profile, Search, and Favorites. And this matches design-wise what Cindy had in her design. And this is how easy it is to implement the same user interface in FireMonkey by using the stencils as a guide. Now, before we open it up to live Q&A, I just wanted to quickly summarize what we've learned in today's session. Now, traditional wireframing is a great starting point, especially if you're not that familiar with digital tools. So the pen and paper method is a tried and true method. You can always continue to use that to build out your initial designs. A number of different digital wireframing tools make it really easy to iterate on designs and also provide collaboration features to make it easy to work with all the different stakeholders on the designs. Our FireMonkey stencils allow designers to quickly design a UI that you can then easily implement for multiple platforms using the FireMonkey framework. And then of course, RAD Studio makes prototyping and app development easy. And with that, we're going to open it up for some questions.